Well, I guess that's it. We have officially entered the Deion Sanders era of college football, and it will never be the same. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All of my YouTubers out there, the new school guys, will notice I'm not in the nice school studio. I'm actually sitting on a floor. And I could have found a place in this home to sit, but the floor felt very appropriate after what happened this weekend to the Big 12. I'm on vacation for Labor Day, but this is another emergency podcast just because this weekend was such a terrible mess for this conference. And it starts with Colorado and Deion Sanders and TCU. I released a show yesterday that said that TCU lost to Colorado. And I want to come back on that a little bit and say outright that Colorado beat TCU. By the way, thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. I'm Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Colorado proved that you can go out with 70-plus new scholarship players and win immediately. What this is, what I want everybody to understand about this is I give a ton of credit to Deion Sanders for walking in, bringing in new transfers who he curated, right? He didn't just bring in some random Jimmies and Joes. He said he's bringing his bags and they're Louis. And well, I guess he at least partially proved that, right? He's going to have to win a couple more games. They go 4-8. I don't think it's going to happen, but if they do, the jury's out still. But what this proved is you can go in the transfer portal if you're anybody in college football and win now. What G.J. Kinney proved at Texas State, he said, hey, Deion, thanks for doing that at noon. Hey, at 6 p.m., I'm going to show the world that now any team in college football can be competitive because a group of 5 team can go steal a bunch of Power 5 players that somebody else didn't want, that wasn't a good fit, that got overlooked. And G.J. Kinney took 53 new scholarship players and beat Baylor. Deion Sanders took 70-plus and at Colorado beat a team that played for a national championship. I don't think, and if you look at the numbers, Deion's recruiting class was not as good as I thought it was going to be. I thought his transfer class was going to be loaded. And while he got 70-plus guys, right, so somebody's bound to be good in that bunch, I didn't look at this class and think, all right, I'm so fearful of what this team's going to do to TCU. You look up and down the roster, the depth chart, and think, this is again, a curated hodgepodge of guys. What can they do against the Horned Frogs? I didn't think it would be much. And instead, they dominated that game against TCU. They dominated a TCU defense that was good enough to send that team to the national championship last season. And I've had a lot of Colorado fans that said, oh, don't bring up 1-11. You're an idiot. You're a stupid idiot if you bring up 1-11. And no, you're the stupid idiot. That was harsh. Sorry. Think about it, though. You should be celebrating the fact that you went 1-11 last year. You've already hit your win total from last season and realize that that's how quick things can turn around in the new college football. If you like the era of development, if you like the era where a freshman can come in and play in year one and try to make an impact and a difference, I think we have gotten away from that. We are away from that because now if you need a quarterback, you're not going to side with a true freshman. If you need a wide receiver, you're not going to go with a true freshman. You're going to go to Western Kentucky and you're going to say, who's your best player? I want him. Give him to me. And you pull that guy out of the portal. That's who you get. On the flip side, if you're Western Kentucky, you say, that wide receiver's gone. We need somebody. The kid who was a freshman, who was a stud freshman and didn't get to play at Penn State last year, he's in the transfer portal. Now he's a sophomore. Western Kentucky, there's your new wide receiver. And then in a couple years, maybe he leaves again. That's where we are in college football. It is a carousel. It is free agency. And free agency really evened out the NFL. There are fewer dynasties because of free agency, but I can't tell what it's going to do to college football. I really can't now. Now that we have seen maniac coaches like Deion Sanders and G.J. Kinney at Texas State go out and completely rebuild a team from scratch from the transfer portal, and we've seen it work. I'm I'm worried about the product of college football, where we've gotten, because the culture of development's gone. Deion didn't develop those guys. He got them out of the portal. They weren't freshmen he developed. G.J. Kinney didn't develop those guys. 34-year-old, got 53 players out of the portal. This wasn't development. This was free agency. Hey, come play for my team, please. Leave the team you're playing for, come play for my team. Your team didn't want you. You didn't want your team. You left. Well, good. You can come play here. That's exactly what it was. And it worked. That's scary, man. There won't be. I heard murmurs this weekend. Ted Cruz was in Waco and said in a meeting that NIL and transfer portal, that there's going to be, they're working on legislation that the government wants to step in, right? As if the NCAA is not bad enough. Now the government wants to step in and create legislation for this. I don't think it's ever going to happen. We're too far deep. The money is too much for there to be a change here. And my message to you, Colorado fans, Deion Sanders is congratulations. This is based off of 1 week, which is a small sample size. Based off of 1 week, you have an opportunity to come in and dominate the Big 12 from day one, to come be the big dog in the Big 12 from day one after what we saw against TCU on Saturday, because Deion's going to continue to load up in the transfer portal. And guess what? He's not going to get worse. There's never going to be a point where he is worse than what he was last weekend. And he was good last weekend. That's the era of college football that we're in. These teams, these big names, the Deion Sanders of the world, are going to have their way with the transfer portal and ultimately have their way with the game. Can he win a national championship? I think so. Now I think so, because he's going to continue to build with what you saw this past weekend. And if I am Texas Tech, if I'm Baylor, if I am Arizona or BYU, I am scared of what Colorado now brings to the Big 12. I am scared of playing Deion Sanders in Colorado, because he's going to come into the league next year and win a lot of ball games. That's what he said on Saturday. That's what he displayed on Saturday, is that his team's going to come into the Big 12 and win immediately. And based on the name that he has, the prowess he has in college athletics, I don't see how it would go otherwise. If you are a one of the 15 teams in the Big 12 not named Colorado, I would be scared of what Deion Sanders is doing there, because it's going to continue to win. It's going to win in this league, and he's going to have a lot of success in the Big 12, because who's going to stop him? Nobody else is working the transfer portal like that. And if you don't, you get left behind now. That's what this weekend proved. You've got to go in the portal and get a whole lot of guys, and they better be good. They better be good, because developing a roster is not going to work anymore. That's not how this thing works anymore. There's a win now. There's a win now way in college football. It's the way it's been in college basketball. Look at Kansas State last year. Is it good or bad for the game? Not for me to say right now. I don't know yet. I don't know where my opinion is on this, but I do know that, the days of, I love this school, my parents went here, I can't wait to play football at this school, I'm going to go there as a freshman and try my hardest to win, those are really leaving us. I believe that. Here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I also believe in Birddogs. They're my favorite shorts. I'm wearing them right now. I would stand up and show you, but it'd just be a fat crotch shot. And that wouldn't be nice. I'm a big shorts guy, but they sent me pants. And I didn't know if I was going to like those pants, and it turns out I did. Because these shorts have built-in underwear. They stretch like khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh. And it's like, these are slim in the thigh, and they kind of they come out toward the knee. So it's like a sculpted look. Gives you the legs of a Greek god or goddess. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They look like Lululemon, but better. They've fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks like khaki, stretches, gives you a way better fit, and makes you look better with anti-stink, anti-sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Birddogs are functional for any occasions. Wear them to a wedding. I'm going to today. show up right now at birddogs.com/LockedOnCollegeXXX or enter promo code LockedOnCollege at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege for a free water bottle at your next checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. I can promise you that much. All right, where did the losers go from this weekend? If you are Texas Tech, what do? If you are Baylor, what do? We'll start with you, Texas Tech. Now you get Oregon. Oh, you just lost on the road to Wyoming. It was bad and embarrassing and not good. So next week, you would love to play Tarleton State at home, but there's a God and he is vengeful. You have to play Oregon, a team that put up 81 points on Portland State. Portland State's bad, really, really bad. That doesn't mean Oregon's just this world-beating team. What it does mean is that Oregon can score a lot of points. Texas Tech, scored 20 regulation points with Tyler Shuck at quarterback against Wyoming. That's not very good. I think for Texas Tech, what is next for the losers? For Texas Tech, if you beat Oregon, you've righted the ship enough, right? Night game and Lubbock, try to get the place rocking. There'll be a lot less hype now that you lost to Wyoming, especially in overtime, a couple of overtimes. I'm not excited about Oregon coming to play Texas Tech. If Texas Tech played the way it did last week, it loses by 21 points. Where do you go from here? Baron Morton has to be your starting quarterback. I watched very closely the Tech Baylor game last year, which I'm sure you want to forget. I understand that. But Baron Morton, after watching his film last season, I think is the best quarterback in that room. Tyler Shuck, everybody, the whole town puts on for Tyler Shuck. He's the best. He's awesome. We love him. And he's good, but not good enough to beat Wyoming. I don't think we're kidding ourselves by saying a quarterback change here is warranted. Like that's okay. And Shuck, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's not bad at all. There are some people out there who are like, yeah, keep him in the game. But 31 for 47 in an offense that obviously likes to pass the ball, those 338 yards are a bit of a misnomer. So are the 3 touchdowns. Getting to overtime helped push that needle. For Shuck, it was a regulation, I don't want to say nightmare, but a regulation struggle at quarterback for a guy who was playing Wyoming. Talked to a lot of Tech fans, called a couple Tech experts at one of the radio guys and said, what do you do? He said, I think you just got to go Baron Morton. At least give a change so that the fan base is re-energized. At least make some sort of tweak so that you can bring life back into this thing. If you're TCU, where do you go from here? Oh, guys, I've had all the confidence in the world that you were going to go out and beat Colorado. I was shocked that you didn't. And again, a lot of credit to Colorado for that. The good part about this for TCU is you get Nicholls State. The bad part about this for TCU, are the fans going to show up? Where do you go from here, TCU? I first want to put a charge to the fans. Last week sucked. Last Saturday sucked. Show up to the game this weekend against Nicholls State. TCU obviously is going to beat Nicholls State. Out of the top 25, this team got to try to build a chip on its shoulder, become that underdog again that it was last year, and went 12-0 with that underdog mentality. You beat Nicholls State by 55, and I think you still ride Chandler Morris. You still ride Chandler Morris, who was, again, kind of the Tyler Shuck deal. It's like, just his numbers aren't horrendous, I guess. But he didn't. If you watched the game, you thought, this guy's missing some bad stuff. Chandler Morris was not a Power 5, competitive starting quarterback on Saturday. To me, I didn't look at Chandler Morris and think, I'm scared of that guy. I don't think anybody in the league would be scared of that guy. But you might be in a spot where you got to ride it out for a little bit. Maybe he becomes that guy against Nicholls State. But you got to show up. That's the number one thing TCU can do. What can the losers do to try to right the ship? The fans got to show the support for the team. Because if TCU beats Nicholls State and then goes into a game against Houston on the road after Houston just beat UTSA and loses, if TCU loses to Houston or SMU, red button time. Red button time on this season. I'm not confident in what TCU can do down the road if the ship is not righted with a 5-0 record the rest of the way in the next 5, I guess. Nicholls State should be a win. Houston should be a win. SMU should be a win. West Virginia and Iowa State should be wins. On paper, you should go 5-1. If you don't, now we're talking red button. What's going on at TCU? There's still enough back for this team to be good. I believe that. Whether you do or do not, my expectation's still high. Baylor Bears, where do you go from here? Delete the football program for a little bit. Turn it off and back on and see what happens. I mean, what a nightmare. That was far and away the worst loss in the conference. That's one of the worst losses in the history of the Big 12, probably. Yeah, because Texas State had never beaten a Power 5 team, and you gave them that. What do you do? Where do you go from here? You're going to have to go buy a whole new offensive line. The offensive line is terrible. It is the worst in the Big 12 based on what we saw Saturday. You're probably going to have to buy a new defensive line and a new secondary. Luckily, in college football, you can buy that. You can go in the portal and do that. A little bit too late now. Your quarterback situation, they let Blake Shapen play with a hurt MCL. That was idiotic. They took Blake out of the game because he was hurt. Then, knowing he had some kind of knee issue, put him back in the game. That's, if you're trying not to get the player hurt, then you don't put the player with a knee injury back in the game. Baylor, where do you go from here? I don't know, but it's not a good spot. And I think your coach is now in the hot seat. I'm Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Dave Aranda might be on the hot seat here. Who was on the hot seat in the Big 12? What Aranda did in year 1 at Baylor was went 2-7. Year 2, he went 12-2, won a Big 12 championship. Did what Iowa State has never done, won a Big 12 championship. Won a Sugar Bowl. The Big 12 doesn't win a lot of Sugar Bowls, and Dave Aranda went and did it. Then this. Last year, he's 6-7. Loses some major recruiting battles, loses his top 3 recruits to other schools, says, hey, I'm going to work the transfer portal now, brings in nearly 15 transfers, which is not, obviously we've learned not enough in college football now, brings in a transfer class and says, all right, we're going to win with these guys, and then didn't against Texas State. The seat is squarely warm. I was texted by some former players this weekend. It's time to fire Dave. I have always really liked Dave Aranda. I have. The question now is, from a lot of people, is he a head coach? Is he a great defensive coordinator, or is he a head coach? He doesn't show emotion on the sidelines. He doesn't have the ability in-game to fire his guys up. He doesn't bring energy at all or an edge. He doesn't bring, he doesn't stand up for his guys to the officiating crew, right? And I know it's a weird thing to say. It's like, oh, he doesn't argue with the officials and you're upset over that. Sometimes you have to just get a pulse from somebody, some kind of life. Dave doesn't really bring that to a press conference or the field or the locker room. He is a really mellow figurehead. And in college football, where you're seeing the Kirby Smarts and the Nick Sabans and the Deion Sanders of the world dominate, I think you gotta meet the kids where they are, meet the players where they are. Dave, I can't mark you safe anymore. Squarely on the hot seat. And if Baylor doesn't turn this thing around and at least win 7 games, it could be as early as this year. If Baylor goes 2-10, 4-8, it is as early as this year. The Dave Aranda era in Waco is over. Who else is on the hot seat? Joey McGuire? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That one loss to Wyoming, nobody's firing the coach. Nobody's firing Joey. Was it terrible? Of course. Of course. But he's fine. He is marked safe for a while there after what he did, winning 8 games in year 1 at Texas Tech. Sonny Dykes at TCU. absolutely marked safe. There's not a conversation for either of these guys. They're in a very similar category of they lost a game that obviously on paper you really shouldn't lose, and your fan base is unhappy that you did lose that game. Is it a fireable offense? Of course not. Do we talk about the word fire here? Of course not. Those two guys are going to be just fine. Dana Holgorsen bought himself some more time. I wouldn't say he was on the hot seat, but I don't know if Houston fans knew he was the guy to take them into the Big 12. Because I've heard murmurs like, okay, what if Jeff Traylor came to Houston, after this season? Is he on the hot seat? Is Dana Holgorsen on the hot seat? No, I think there's a little heat to it. It's a little warm there, maybe a little warm. But is it hot? No. And after this win against UTSA, he's bought himself even more time. It's a good UTSA team. This is a good win for Houston. I think Dana Holgorsen, with this trajectory, unless they go 3-9, 4-8, marked safe at Houston. Kalani Sitake, another win where his defense now got a shutout. One of the glaring issues last year was defense. Is Sitake on the hot seat? Again, I don't think so. There are murmurs preseason that if Sitake doesn't get it done this year, that BYU is going to move on. He got it done in week 1. His defense did. His offense was bad. Keaton Slovis was not good. So I don't know, Kalani Sitake. There's a little warmth there. There's a little burner on, but he's not on the hot seat. At BYU, same as Houston, goes 3-9, 4-8. That conversation's reopened. But Kalani Sitake, marked safe. Scott Satterfield, 66-13 in his first win. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. And then 38-15, West Virginia does not cover against Penn State. Neil Brown is not on the hot seat. He is past the hot seat. He's a dead man walking. Weekend at Bernie's, we're just propping him up at this point, and it's getting embarrassing. Neil Brown will not coach at West Virginia next year. The only two job openings, that one is guaranteed. West Virginia is guaranteed to have an opening next year. The number 2 hottest seat in the Big 12 now is Baylor. Dave Aranda at Baylor. Kind of a wild thing to consider, but it is the case now. It is the case. Right here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm going to go back to my Labor Day festivities. Thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. This has been, it always will be, Locked On Dose Grande.